She pauses for a moment, eyes downward, considering. So, none at all. Meaning some people are just totally oblivious, just live their lives totally unaware. You don't really need to ask me that. You can see it all around you. People completely in character, no inkling that things may be other than they seem, still shackled in Plato's cave. The degree to which one is unaware of one's fraudulent nature might be considered the degree to which one is in the grip of Maya, delusion, the dream state. It's very tempting to believe that one evolves over the course of who knows how many lifetimes, becoming progressively more and more awake from life to life. Increased awakeness would naturally translate into greater dissatisfaction with fraudulence, falseness, and delusion, and a corresponding desire to know what's real. Extend the line forward, and it results in a complete break with ego and an awakening into truth. Julie pronounces the word like a death sentence. One's true nature. Sure. And that's also why the process of waking up can look a lot like a massive breakdown. In fact, I suppose that's essentially what it is. A complete break from one has always assumed to be reality. That's why depression, for instance, might be hard to combat, because it can be a perfectly rational response to a highly irrational situation, namely life, especially when the depression revolves around futility or insignificance. After all, you can't be much more futile or insignificant than a character in a dream. The way to defeat rational depression is not to try at all costs to turn back from it, or to cling to the illusion of meaning, but to plow right on through it and see what's on the other side. Rather than recoil from the horror of nothingness, plunge headlong into it. What's there to lose? But of course, the point of depression isn't to conquer it. What's the point of depression? I look at her, wondering what she's really asking, wondering why I'm really answering. The truth isn't always the best answer, but when in doubt, I tend to go with it. Same as the point of any other ride in the park. The point of the ride is the ride. That stops her. She pauses, thinking. Her agitation is becoming plainer now, closer to the surface. So no one even has a self? That's what you're saying, right? That there is no real, there's no truth? Oh, everyone has an underlying truth, but yeah, no one knows it any more than your dream characters know they are products of the sleep state of the larger self. No one who's not enlightened, you mean? Yes, I confirm. That's the distinction. She's not comfortable hearing this. So unenlightened people don't know themselves? Don't know their own true natures? And so they have to create artificial selves because, she jumps in, because that's the only self they know. And that's the ego. That's the false self. Right. So when they talk about annihilating the ego, right, they're saying that if you destroy the false, then only the true remains. Jesus. So I'm constantly constructing a false self? Constantly. Yes. That's how you spend your energy, your life force. It all goes into projecting the illusion of you. You're constantly projecting an external representation of yourself that is always a work in progress, always shifting and evolving. Which everybody does? Interesting point. Yes and no. It's a matter of degree. When you think of truly selfless people, this is the level at which a difference exists. A selfless person has found definition in something other than self. Rather than projecting, they're fulfilling. They have relinquished their self-defining role to some outside agency. Motherhood might be a good example, or giving one's life to God, or dedicating oneself to a cause or a creative endeavor. they're still on stage. It's still a costume. Their life force is still spent animating their character. But they are stepping into a role rather than creating one. So, giving oneself over to a higher power, higher, lower, whatever, the giving over is the crucial factor. It doesn't matter if it's to God or country or the carving of a walking stick. A walking stick. Thoreau wrote a story about a guy who transcended self through absolute dedication to a single task, carving a walking stick. So, like Soneya? Yes, Soneya. You said yes and no. Right. A selfless person has dedicated or abdicated, to put it another way, himself or herself to a single defining ideal. But the process is fundamentally the same, whether one selects a single ideal or a dozen or 100. All those things that define a person, career, community, family, and so forth, are all just predefined roles that one steps into, animates. In a very real sense, they're all acts of abdication. But who is abdicated? What is being abdicated? Those are the real questions. What is left when all context is dropped? What is left when you remove church, job, relationships, hobbies, and everything else? More layers? Nature? Nurture? Perinatal influences? Past life influences? Okay, but what's beyond those? That's the process. Stripping away layer after layer, like an onion, until all that's left is, but an onion is only layers. So is ego, self, only layers. Remove all the layers, and no self is left. And no self is true self? There is no true self. But yeah, that's the general idea. Then who am I talking to? You'd do better to wonder what you're referring to when you say I, or who's referring to I, or who's wondering who's referring to I, and so on and so on. She's getting exasperated. I totally don't get it. Or you could use Ramana Maharishi's popular mantra, who am I? But that's a bit misleading, so I'll change it to, what is me? Oh, like that really clears things up. Or maybe you can use it as a koan, like, what is your original face before you were born? You're messing with me. It's nothing trickier than figuring out what's left when all the layers of delusion are pulled away. It's just about what's true. It couldn't be simpler, literally. What was true about a mosquito that lived 10,000 years ago is just as true about the mosquito now. What's true about a spark that will exist for 1,000th of a second 1,000,000 years from now, and 1,000,000 light years from here, is as true here and now as it will ever be. It never was not true, and it never will be not true. And those truths, and my truth, and your truth, and the truth of Jesus and Buddha and Hitler and Mother Teresa and a dead fish floating in the Ganges and all the ascended masters and the Milky Way galaxy and every single thought anyone ever thought are all the same truth. It always was and always will be. Time and space come and go, but what's true is true, and all the rest is but a dream. Silence. Possible irritation. Possible agitation. Time is required. We wander into the living room and, finding it empty, take seats on the couch. We sit quietly for a while until Julie decides to continue. So, for example, what would my false self be made up of? Same as anyone's. However you define yourself is how you create your false self. Your career, obviously, gives you a framework and structure for who you are and what you do and why. Family is a big one, or a A lot of big ones, as one fulfills different roles for different people. Mother, daughter, sister, wife, aunt, and so forth. Other relationships, community, nationality and racial identity, gender, of course, status as a financial entity, church membership, physical condition and appearance, education, politics, hobbies, beliefs, opinions, thoughts, feelings, everything. These are all the things that require your energy in order to remain viable aspects of yourself. If you stop putting your energy into cleaning the house, then you can no longer define yourself as a good housekeeper. What if I pay someone to keep my house clean? Money is energy once removed. It's an exchange medium for energy. And by energy you mean simply that if you wish to think of yourself as a caring, giving person, you'll have to care for something, give to something. If you want to be physically attractive, you have to do all the things necessary to project attractiveness in order to have it reflected back to you. Have my attractiveness reflected back to me? Have you ever seen your own face directly? Looked into your own eyes? Well, no, I guess not. Similarly, the false self cannot be perceived directly, but only by the reflection it casts in the eyes of others. Are we back to the vampires now? Why? Oh, because they don't cast a reflection. Boy, that analogy just keeps going and going. It's almost spooky. It is spooky. Okay, so if I want to think of myself as attractive, I need other people to see me as attractive? Sure. We spend our lives and our life force cultivating and grooming our appearance in the eyes of others. That's how we know that we exist. That's how we know who we are. That's where we find reassurance that we are real and not just hollow dream characters. That's how the illusion is constantly maintained. So, like when they say perception creates reality, perception is reality. There is nothing else, just like in a dream. Well, then who's doing the perceiving, the dreaming? Who's the dreamer? Well, from my perspective, it's me. Well, from my perspective, it's me. Oh, well, that didn't get us very far, did it? Huh? Infinity holds infinite infinities. Oh, God, you're making my head swim. Mine too. Let's take a break and try to relax. Chapter 35. In the Ward of Fevered Minds. Bed after bed, child after child. Some calm, some thrashing, some laughing, some wailing, calling for mommy, calling for God. One sits up, eyes open, asking. I go to him, sit, answer. He nods, falls back, gone again. I was once in a bed like them, fevered, deluded. Now I'm in a chair. I suppose it's better. A room full of loonies. I return to my crossword puzzle until the next one sits up, asks. Jed McKenna. Chapter 36. I don't eat human eyeballs. Die while you're alive and be absolutely dead. Then do whatever you want. It's all good. Gunan. I make coffee. We prepare a tray with cups and cream and sugar and some sweet stuff and carry it all back to the couch in the living room, which is positioned to provide an unobstructed view of the turbulent clouds through large west-facing windows. This conversation is more interesting to me than many because I'm clarifying it for myself as we go along. When the topic is enlightenment, I can speak with perfect authority of a true master, and my only real challenge is how to transmit thoughts and ideas more succinctly. But when the topic is the nature of